Well, good evening. Welcome to this section of Just Ask Jess. This evening we're going to be talking about psychometric tests or assessments, what they're about, what they're for, how you use them, how you know when they're good, all that kind of thing. So if you're here and you're listening and you've got a question, feel free to ask and I'll do my best to answer everything that comes through. But in a nutshell, I do a lot of work with behaviour and people performance, and we use psychometrics for a lot of the things that we do. And I often get questions from people around how do you know what they're for, how do you know what's good, how do you know what you should use, those types of questions. So hoping today to be able to answer some of those for you. So what are psychometric tests? Well, first of all, they're a way of measuring your behavioural style, right? So thinking about how people work most effectively together, how do you understand somebody's style, their choices of approach, and how do you figure out how to work most effectively with them? So, hello, somebody's just joined us this evening. Hello, nice to see you. So how do you assess, this is how I like to be, and how does that compare with how you like to be, and how do we work most effectively together? And that's really what a psychometric assessment or test is about. And although we call them tests, one of the things that's really important to understand is that there is effectively no right or wrong with the results of a psychometric test. It's a test in that you're likely to answer questions, but there's no correct answer. And the results that you get from a psychometric assessment are about understanding more about yourself rather than anything being right or wrong with what you do. So once you know that, then it's a little bit easier to work with a psychometric assessment. So what type of assessment do you pick? How do you know what you want? Well, first of all, you need to think about what you're trying to do. So with a psychometric assessment, there are lots of different types of them. So we use ones called things like DISC and Myers Briggs, which can also be called MBTI and Work Styles Analyzer and Shell Styles Indicator. And there's a whole array of different things out there. Hi Darren, nice to see you. Thank you very much. There's a whole array of tests out there that you can do. It's really important to understand what it is you're trying to achieve by doing the assessment. So some assessments are really good for how teams can interact together. Some are really good for you understanding your own self and how you work. Some are really good for exploring specific elements like fit with a job or how you respond to change. So there's lots of different ways that you could look at a different assessment test. So it's really important to understand what you're trying to get out of that assessment, to understand what you need. And whatever provider or facilitator like me you use, they should be able to help and guide you in understanding what type of assessment is the right assessment for your situation and your need. But overall, there's a couple of specific things that you want to make sure you understand. So first of all, we're really concerned about validity. So we want whatever assessment tool you're using to be sure that it actually measures what it's supposed to measure. So there's no point in doing an assessment that's supposed to tell you how you respond to change if you're not sure the results at the end are going to actually tell you that. So you're looking for proof or research that shows you that the tool that you're using is valid. That's the first thing. And then the second thing you're most concerned about is reliability. So if you took the same assessment twice, would you get the same results or different results? Because if you get different results, then you might be questioning the reliability of that tool. So you want an assessment that is valid and one that's reliable. And there's lots of the tools that have been developed over time, things like DISC, there's lots of evidence out there to prove the research that's been done to test their validity, and people spend a lot of time working on determining the right questions to ask, the way to format the assessment, all those types of things to make sure they're both valid and reliable. So those are the two things that you're really looking for. And again, any facilitator or provider you use who is working with you with an assessment should be able to tell you about the validity and reliability of that particular tool. And then the last thing to really think about is, what are you going to do with the results? So, there's lots of times that people will use a psychometric assessment of some kind to do a team building activity. I see that a lot. And they can be really helpful in that space because they help people explore why they do things the way that they do them compared to other people. And that's really important in teams. And they can really help to create that common language around how a person operates so that you can talk about how you're doing things together. But it's really important to not use that tool as something that becomes an excuse for people. So it's no good if you get your Myers Briggs back, for example, and it says, you know, I'm an ENFP, which I am. You can't go on saying, well, I'm an ENFP, that's just the way I am, sorry. You still have to own the choices and the behaviour that you make. So it's really important that people understand that having a language doesn't allow you to just say, sorry, I'm not responsible for the impact that I'm having. And the other piece is that language allows people to explore, and we don't categorise or label people as a result of what their psychometric assessment says, because ultimately that's only one piece of who you are. So, you know, those are a few things to think about when you're thinking about assessments. Think about, you know, making sure that you know what you're going to use it for, how are you going to use the results, and then ask some questions about the reliability and the validity of the tool that's being used for your particular purpose. I got asked a question the other day around why do I need to pay for an assessment? Why can't I just do the free one that I found, or do the one on Facebook? And there are lots of fun quizzes and assessments on Facebook, and I do quite a lot of them myself. You'll see them in my personal feed. I find some of them quite amusing, and by all means, you know, those are a nice bit of fun, and they can make you have a good conversation about who you are and how you show up. But back to that piece about reliability and validity. If you're going to be doing work with people that talks about who they are on a personal level, then it's really important to think about making sure the tool that you're using is one that's tried and tested. For some people, it's rare, but for some people, when they get their assessment results back, you know, that can be quite affronting the first time you see something like that, and it's really building your own awareness of yourself and what you're about. So if you're going to have that type of conversation, if you're going to be doing that type of work, make sure that you're investing in a tool that's really been proven to deliver the results that you're looking for, and save the Facebook games and tests for a bit of fun or Friday night when you're down the pub having a drink. They're very good for that. So yeah, by all means use them, but if you're going to be doing pretty concerted work with your team, I would spend the money on a proper assessment. Which also leads me to the people that deliver them. So there are lots of people who deliver psychometric assessments. There's lots out there. Ask some questions. You know, I am never offended when somebody asks me how experienced I am, what I use them for, which ones I recommend, asks me to explain about the tools that I'm using, because, you know, we go through extensive training to be able to use the tools that we do, and really good facilitators have used the right tools in the right context over and over again, and can talk about why they apply what they do the way they do. So never be afraid to really challenge or ask questions of the person that's coming in to work with you. That's part and parcel of the role that we play. So I think that's probably everything I can think of to share right now. So psychometrics, make sure you know what you want them for. Is this a team thing? Is this a personal thing? Is this about a specific challenge that you're facing? How do you plan to use the results? Are you planning to share them? Is this just for you? Is this personal? Is this for your team? Think about asking questions about reliability and validity of the tool that you're using, and don't be afraid to ask the facilitator or the person that's coming in to help you figure out what's the right approach for you. That's part and parcel of their job. So I find these assessments extremely helpful for building people's self-awareness, extremely helpful for helping people work together in teams, but you need to build the language around it, and it needs to be done right. So, you know, don't be afraid to challenge the person coming in, and make sure you get the right assessment tool for you. If there's any other questions, if you're catching this later on today and you have any other questions about them, please, by all means, drop me a line, send me an email, or you can tweet or Facebook message me, ask me whatever you need to. Like I say, I'm a big fan of assessments, really hoping that people use them the right way, and, you know, make sure that they're educated in the tool that's best for them. So thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll be seeing you again for another instalment of Just Ask Jess.